test, test, test.
Works in here. You bet. Usual guys on vacation, so we got. Official.
right, we have a quorum. We'll bring to order the meeting of the Inland Wetland. Okay, thank you. We'll bring to order the meeting of the Inland Wetland and Conservation Commission. And we are here, council chamber, and ready to begin. Are there any permit extensions?
No, none.
Okay. You know what I just noticed on the agenda? We usually have comments for something not on the agenda, but we don't have that tonight.
Public participation, right?
So, you want to ask for that, Commission? Or I guess we better follow the official agenda that was posted. So permit extensions?
No permit extensions.
Correspondence and reports?
Nope.
Bonds?
No bonds.
All right. Minutes of the October 20th, 2021 meeting. We received a heroically done 26-page, I guess, draft document of the minutes that were just wrapped up, that there are some planned tightening and revisions, formatting, things like that, sentences and all. So I know I reviewed them, town staff reviewed them, I'm sure the commission looked at them. We didn't find anything really basically factual wrong, but I would recommend for the commission's consideration that we look at those for reference purposes tonight, let them be formalized into their final state for the record so that they're in the right format and all, and have the vote at the next meeting to accept them. Now, do we concur, or did anyone see anything glaring factually wrong in them? Just the formatting. Okay, so we can use that as guidance then if we want. Okay. All right, so that'll be on the agenda for the next meeting for a formal approval? The minutes?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Conservation Commission.
Just an update on some of the projects that we have.
All right. Nice work. Someone want to pass this down?
So the construction of the bridge on the town hall property is underway. The Scout Troop 62 got together on Saturday and started construction of the bridge. I snuck down there early Sunday morning before they reconvened just to take the picture that you see there on there. And they actually did quite a bit on Sunday as well. The decking is on the main portion, and one of the eastern ramp is there. So I believe, and Jack can probably attest to that, they'll hopefully finish it this weekend, or at least make a big dent in the construction of it.
They're going to do everything possible to try and get it finished, but
Yeah.
They're hoping at least at minimum to get it to the point at which maybe the only thing left will be the 200-odd balusters to put in.
Good. So once that's done, we're probably going to look at the stream channel itself that goes from Route 74 down to the culvert at the driveway, and look to see if we can put together a couple more scout projects in stabilizing that portion of the brook. It is pretty unstable. If you go down there, you can see that there's quite a few big meanders on there that are certainly took a hit from the last several storms that we've had on there. So we're hoping we can at least do something on that, make that whole trail area look pretty nice and stable as well. I've also had a request from the environmental club at the high school. They would like to do a tree planting. I believe they have a grant to purchase some trees, so I'll be working with them to select some species and some areas in town that would benefit from some additional trees on that. So not quite sure how many they're looking to do, at least 3 species, but the actual numbers I'm not sure on yet, so I'll give you an update once we get going on that.
All right, thanks. All right, and then lastly, wetland officers report.
Well, it's been pretty quiet as far as storms are concerned, so our construction sites have been, I think, pretty stable. We've had a number of them that have been able to affect a lot of repairs from the storms that we've had this summer as well on it, so we don't have too much other than what we have under other business to discuss later on in the meeting.
Thanks. All right, and then we are on to the public hearing. Adam?
To be published in the Journal Inquirer Saturday, October 23rd and October 30th, 2021, South Windsor and Wetlands Agencies Conservation Commission. Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing to be held on Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021 in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall at 7 p.m. to consider the following. Application 21-49W, Town of South Windsor, Beelzebub Road Reconstruction, Inland Wetlands Conservation Commission application for the reconstruction, Beelzebub Road, storm water management and associated utilities, rural residential zone. Copies of the application are on file in the office of the town clerk and/or the planning department. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard, and written comments by the public will be received. Barbara Kelly, Chairman.
All right, thank you. All right, and is there someone here, I see, to speak to the application?
Helps if I turn it on. Good evening, Chairman, members of the Wetlands Commission. I'm Jeff Doolittle, Town Engineer. We're here to present before you the Beelzebub Road Reconstruction Project, which has 2 outfalls, which will be the subject of this hearing, that discharge at or near wetlands, one of which we're modifying as part of the road reconstruction, the other of which we're really not touching at all. And with me tonight is Nick DiPalermo and Raju from Weston and Sampson, who are the engineers in the project, and I'm going to let them do the bulk of the presentation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nick DiPalermo with Weston and Sampson, as Jeff just mentioned. Here with Raju Vasamasetti. I can just scroll here.
Excuse me a second. I think you're very tall.
Okay.
And you're very far from the microphone. I don't know, can we do anything, or is there?
I can just try to lean down a little bit, if that's all right.
Or do we have a?
Or I can hold it up here.
Oh, I mean, if you could a little bit, that.
Yeah. There we go.
We should.
I'm sorry my back is to all you guys, but I'll do my best here. Okay. So, yes, this is a Beelzebub Road Reconstruction Project. Here's who we have with us tonight. Quick agenda, what I'm going to go through. Overall project area. We'll look at some of the existing conditions, and then we'll move into our proposed improvements for the project before getting into the wetland impacts, as well as some of our water quality improvements. At the end, I'd be happy to take any questions. So here's our overall project area, starting at the intersection with Foster Street, running down Beelzebub Road for approximately a mile. The road reconstruction will end about 400 feet west of Avery Street, and our sidewalk construction will continue down Beelzebub Road to connect to Avery Street. Here's just a glimpse of some existing conditions, just an aerial photo, as well as a site photo. This is in the vicinity of the first culvert crossing, the 36-inch culvert crossing near Norton Lane. You see here which outlets into Avery Brook. on the state of Connecticut property. Another just existing conditions photo in the vicinity of our second culvert crossing, also a 36-inch culvert, which outlets into unnamed brook, which eventually gets down into Avery Brook as well. So here are a couple site photos, which primarily I put up here to demonstrate some of the reasons why we're doing this project with the town. You can see, some of the utility patches, the cracking, the unraveling on the edge of pavement, which is mainly due to, the lack of formal drainage out there, the lack of curbing. And actually, when we were out there the other day, we had someone drive by and yell out their window, I hope you're paving this road. So, yeah, clearly there's issues, and we're looking to solve those issues with this project. These are just our typical sections for the project. You'll see, for the first about 2,500 feet, the sidewalk's going to be on the north side, and then we're going to cross over at Norton Lane for the sidewalk on the south side of the road. Here are, I know these are tough to see, but we'll get into some zoomed in pictures a little later. These are just our colored plans showing our overall improvement. Pretty straightforward. The green is, our grass. The orange is showing the sidewalk, and you have the roadway, as well as the blue areas are the flagged wetland areas. I'll just move on here. We can get a little closer in. So here's a zoomed in version of the proposed improvements. This is again in the vicinity of that first 36-inch culvert crossing, which is right in this area. Down here you'll see our proposed energy dissipator, which is where our wetland impacts are going to come into play. This is another proposed improvements. This is at the second 36-inch culvert crossing. You see the flagged wetlands on both sides of the road, and we will not be impacting the wetlands at this crossing. So I know there's a lot of words on this slide, but these are just our overall impacts for the project. Close to 6 acres of total impacts. Our impacts within our wetland buffer, our regulated area, is about 0.66 acres. And then our wetland / watercourse impacts, permanent impacts, we're looking at about 400 square feet. For temporary impacts, around 250. And then our total impacts are around 650 square feet, or 0.015 acres. Which is approximately 0.25% of the total project area. So as we get into the next slides, site number 1 is going to be our first culvert crossing, and site number 2 is going to be that second culvert crossing. So this is our wetland impacts plan. You'll see on the south side of Beelzebub Road, we have our flagged wetlands in the bold line there, and our striped hatch is showing our permanent impacts due to the installation of our energy dissipator at the 36-inch culvert outlet. Currently, we've seen some erosion out there due to the velocity of the water coming through that culvert, and so we're proposing to install a scour hole, riprap, splash pad type of structure to prevent any further erosion in the future. This other hatch around the outside is our temporary impacts, which we've included for construction staging and access for the contractor during construction. I've also highlighted here our first hydrodynamic separator that we're installing on the project. which is going to be useful for water quality, as it will trap and not let those sediments from our drainage get into Avery Brook. Here's site number 2. Again, like I said, we don't have any actual wetland impacts at this site. We just wanted to show we have the wetlands flagged. We're not touching this 36-inch culvert. You know, we're installing new catch basin tops. And again, we're also installing another hydrodynamic separator here for water quality. Right, so to go along with the hydrodynamic separators, we're improving the overall water quality on the roadway by, proposing new curbing, which will keep the water in the roadway, get it into our closed drainage systems, and eventually get the water into those hydrodynamic separators. All the catch basins will have 2-foot sumps to allow for sediment to sit. And then also we're going to be installing that riprap energy dissipator, as well as the standard erosion and sedimentation prevention measures during construction. Yeah, so at this time, if anyone has any questions, be happy to answer. Thank you. And we can go back to any slides if anyone wants to look at anything again.
I guess you're not replacing the culverts. They're in good enough shape?
Correct, yep. Yep, they've been TV'd and they've been deemed to be in good condition, so we're not going to be touching either culvert for this project.
Thank you.
What type of flows do you expect to be going through these culverts during the construction period? And are you going to need to do diversions? No diversions will be necessary. It's just going to maintain the existing flows during construction.
One other question now. What's the maintenance on the separator? That must have a maintenance that you need to clean out periodically. Town must do that, right?
Yeah, there would be a plan that the town would come up with to maintain those hydrodynamic separators. I'm not going to speak to how many times per year, or, but they would need to be maintained.
But they will be, okay.
Yep.
Do you want to have Mr. Doolittle answer that one? What you want to have, we'll have the town engineer answer? So you're good. Okay. All right. And my question, will the town be doing this work, or will it be contracted work? And you know what this follow question is.
This will all be contracted out. This is a very large project.
Okay. And so then can we expect the town to be bonding the erosion and sediment control measures
Yes.
on an ongoing basis? So that
Right, we will have our normal construction bonds, yes.
the new one, the later ones that are now in effect, so that they do ongoing E&S during the course of the project and don't just wait till the end to do the soil stabilization.
Right, and that's what we've been doing, yes. It's been working well.
It went real well on the recent Avery Street
Yes.
project, as opposed to the earlier one.
Right, we expect it to go well on these projects.
So the new process. Okay, thanks.
Jeff, do you agree that the E&S measures proposed are adequate?
Yeah, they're going to be installing perimeter controls along the snow shelf itself, so they maintain some control while they're redoing the road. They are proposing some silt fencing downstream of the where the culvert repair is, or not the outfall repair is going to be affected on that. I would also like to mention a little bit that the wetland area for the culvert number 1, where they're going to be doing the installation of the energy separator, that would be characterized as a wooded wetland. In looking at that, the area that is going to be under construction has seen some impacts in the past, both with riprap that was placed in there as, I think, past attempts to stabilize it. Also, that general area, when you look at it with an auger, there's quite a bit of historic road sand in that area. Obviously, we're not sanding the roads anymore, but when we were, a lot of it was collected in those areas, and when it was needed, I guess it was kind of mucked out by Public Works, as needed. But certainly the soil material within that is primarily a coarse and medium sands, which is indicative of just remnant road sand on it. It still has a fairly vigorous wetland plant component to it, and obviously it leads down through to the Avery Brook Channel, which goes into a larger wetland to the southeast, and then to where the flood control dams are on there before then it crosses over into Avery Street itself. But as proposed, I think it's going to minimize any impacts downstream from it, and obviously the result of that is going to be an overall benefit to the wetland system by keeping the scouring and sediments to a minimum as water velocities go through it.
All right. Any other questions?
Well,
Yes.
One other quick question. The impact to the upland area, obviously that's incurs when your heavy equipment is in there working and whatever. When it's all said and done, that's going to be restored and replanted?
Yes.
just want to go on record that I visited the site. One other question, how fast are you going to be able to get this done? That road is a mess, especially with Connecticut Water Company finished with it.
Yes, so our plan is to get this out to bid this winter, so construction starts in the spring.
Could you describe the restoration for the disturbed area?
Well, we would, the disturbed area within the upland review area is basically the road area. So the road will be restored as a road, and the roadside areas will be just restored with topsoil and turf grass.
Turf grass. And the wetland?
I'm sorry, the wetlands?
Any disturbance around the area where the energy dissipator is installed?
Yes, so that would be restored with native material, I guess, as needed. We would try and minimize that. Typically, we've been able to minimize that.
So that would be working with town staff to
Yes.
identify any as, I don't expect that that area is going to be very large.
No.
All right, no more questions from commission. We just heard staff comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? This is the public hearing on the project. This is different than our last public hearing. Okay, thanks. I don't think it's on.
John Holozak, Cody Circle. Maybe I missed it, but is this hydrodynamic separator going to be designed for a 10-year storm or a 25-year storm? Maybe they could clarify, and I'll just sign in right here.
So typically when we're doing the drainage design, we'll look at both a 10-year and a 25-year. The capacity is not going to be an issue. When we're looking at hydrodynamic separators, we look more so at the water quality volume, which has to do with impervious area and what type of sediment is getting into these structures. So yes, they will be sufficient for both a 10 and 25-year storm.
Anyone else with a question?
Move to close the public hearing on application 21-49W.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second?
Okay, thanks. All right, any discussion on closing the public hearing on this application? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, I see no one opposed, and anyone abstaining? No, no one is abstaining. All right, so the public hearing then is officially closed on this application. And now we're on to new business. And this is application 21-36P, 25 Talbot Lane. The 25 and 5 Talbot Lane, 475 and 551 Governor's Highway application. All right, so we've heard the public hearing. Now is our time as the commission to deliberate on this matter. So, let me move this. I have to go to my notes. All right. So process-wise, I guess, well, first, does anyone have some thoughts? Anyone on the commission have thoughts they want to go into? And then if not, I've got notes as to what findings to be making. Jack,
We
would
should
you-
probably start with the finding on the intervener's petition.
So that would be to be deciding whether or not the proposed conduct will cause the unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction of air, water, or natural resources of the state, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to, as I did with the initial acceptance of the petition for intervening, going to word this in the positive, that I'm going to word it as a finding that there is going to be a reasonable likelihood to have unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destroying. The reason I'm wording it that way, which has been recommended by many people, is if you word it that way, if it passes, then you have a finding that there is a reasonable likelihood of unreasonable polluting. If it fails, then it failed and it's done. If you word it the other way, which some people have recommended, but most people do not, if you word the finding of it that did not do it, and it passes, then there's a finding that it is not reasonably likely. But if it fails, there's still no finding that it is reasonably likely.
Okay,
So it's a much cleaner by wording it in the affirmative. So,
everyone on the commission understand, would you like to make that motion, and then we would have discussion on that? Okay,
so move that based on the record presented in the public hearing, that the proposed conduct will cause unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction of the air, water, or other natural resources of the state, specifically in the jurisdiction of this commission, the Wetlands and Watercourses.
All right. Is there a second to Jack's motion so that we can open discussion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now the commission, we should discuss, or people should put out their thoughts about whether or not, you know, where you stand about what was presented to you and what you heard about that claim. Okay? Is this making sense? I know this is an odd, it's a tough way to do the wording, but. So we're speaking now to whether or not the claim was made and whether or not there's likely to be that unreasonable harm. Did you want to start off with your thoughts, Jack?
I could start with my thoughts. At the earlier portion during during the public hearing, we did have a finding that a proper verified pleading was introduced for a petition to intervene on this with 5 specific factual allegations. By filing that petition, the intervener gained the right to, amongst other things, the ability to present expert testimony on the 5 points to show that there is a reasonable likelihood that the activities, that the conduct is reasonably likely to have the effect of unreasonable polluting, impairing, or destroying the public trust, in our case specifically of wetlands and watercourses. A key portion here has been done in case law numerous times is that the burden of proof is on the intervener, and that the intervener must be presenting expert testimony to document that proof. The interveners in this case presented a large amount of data to us. Much of that data was not within the purview of this commission, such as the data on possible air pollution from the idling of trucks. The wildlife, their factual allegation on wildlife was accepted in the finding of the initial pleading, because there could be a chance that expert testimony could have shown how that would have reasonable likelihood of unreasonable pollutant, impairing, or destroying. Lighting, the need to have other permits from other agencies is not within the purview of this agency. A few other items in general that they presented, they talked about the possible pollution from truck washing, of which the applicant assured us there will not be any truck washing going on. We are required to accept that at face value unless there is specific evidence showing that that is not true. Where am I here? In regards to wetland mapping, yes, the intervener showed that there have been different maps, wetlands mappings in this, for this plot of land. The mapping was done by the applicant, and it was confirmed by a third party, a disinterested party, that the mapping shown. The old maps In this case, we don't know why or how they were done, and has been shown and confirmed in court cases, the current reality is what we must deal with, and the current reality was mapped and the mapping confirmed, as was shown by the applicant with the minor changes that were made after the disinterested party confirmation. The fact that the intervener did not have their own soil scientist present, the timing of the confirmation was done at their request, and the fact that they failed to show up at the timing that they requested does not render the work that was done invalid. Now, to get into the specific allegations made, the application proposed activities will directly introduce pollutant into the wetlands through the use of mechanized equipment and leakage of various fuels, oils, lubricants, and other man-made waste products on the proposed site. The applicant has proposed methods to mitigate that, and there was no expert testimony given that the proposed methods by the applicant would fail, or that the proposed activities would have, again, the reasonable, likely to have the effect of unreasonable polluting, impairing, or destroying. The alteration of topography on the site proposed by the applicants will cause direct alteration of hydrology on the site. Again, the hydrology on the site was looked at. The conclusion from the experts was that it will not have a significant impact, and that it probably will not be significantly changed due to the presence of the ponding. And again, no expert testimony was presented to refute that or to show how any proposed activities, an alteration of the hydrology would be reasonably likely to have the effect of unreasonable polluting, impairing, or destroying. The alteration of the topography of the site proposed by the applicants will directly impact certain species of vegetation, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and insects, which may be protected by state and federal law. As I mentioned earlier, it is not within the purview of this commission that other permits may be necessary. That would be within the purview of whatever is the appropriate agencies. Again, this is the one that, as I said earlier, that we left in case a case was made that showed how this was related to potential unreasonable polluting, impairing, or destroying of, as in purview of this commission, the wetlands and watercourses, and that was not done. Industrial use and increased runoff from construction activities will increase impervious surface area, decrease the vegetation, which may directly alter the water temperature in the wetlands. Again, there was no expert testimony given showing what the effect will be and how that would cause unreasonable polluting. They did not provide any information as to what water temperature changes were to be expected and how that would cause damage. There are other feasible alternatives to the applicant's proposed activity, which would be less detrimental to the wetlands and watercourses present on site. There may be other feasible alternatives, and this commission would be getting into that if and when we get into a discussion on prudent and feasible alternatives. And again, for purposes of this commission, it's not just are there feasible, but there must be prudent and feasible alternatives. And again, there was no expert testimony showing that the alternative proposed and any feasible and prudent alternatives would have the likely effect of unreasonable polluting, impairing, or destroying. Therefore, on this finding, I intend to vote nay.
I appreciate the thought that you put into that. Okay. And I'd like to just hear from the other commissioners as to their thoughts on the original motion or in reaction to what Jack has said. I wish we had our round table. We could discuss better. Okay.
Each commissioner should go on record as to
what
why they are voting the way they are planning to vote.
Thank you. I could start at an end, or we'll get a volunteer and get.
As a commission, we're chartered by, the state of Connecticut to uphold their regulations on watercourses and wetlands. That's really kind of all we do. We also do a lot to do with drainage issues and things like that. But, if we focus in on the wetlands aspect of this project, and what the impact is, we're eliminating, I think, a little over 2/10 of an acre of what turn out to be ditches, watercourses. And as mitigation, the applicant has offered.
Dick, could you get a little bit closer to your mic so the folks can hear you better?
Sorry.
You can pull the mic forward towards you. Can't you?
The
No.
applicant has offered, a little over 3/10 of an acre. And when I look at this, I look at the what we're giving up as far as, functioning wetland type issues. And this drainage ditch was a ditch that was put in there, 30, 40 years ago to drain the field. Since then, there's been, residential built up around, and it is kind of not only lost its purpose, but if you observe it over even this summer where there was a lot of rain, the ditch rarely had any water in it, and if it did, it was over a very short period of time after the storm. We had, ecologist reports and wetlands science reports, 2 or 3 of them, and they all came up with the same conclusion, that the functionality of that ditch is as a wetlands source or a value is pretty near zero. For that, we got as mitigation, because the applicant wants to eliminate them and put a big building right there. So as mitigation, which is one of the driving things that we always in this commission have to consider, because development is a right, protection of the wetlands is our job. So we got to balance the two. And I think in his offering of putting a wetlands in the western portion of the property, next to a current viable existing wetlands at a very consistent elevation, is going to be, if anything, give us something that is more valuable than what we're giving up. And it's even bigger in size. So to me, this, is not an issue. And, you know, for that, you know, it's really one of the easier things in my mind to reconcile, because the wetlands piece of it is really almost a win for us, because we're getting something that's better and bigger. And it's kind of, hey, Jack, have we done, you know, prudent and feasible alternatives yet?
No,
Okay.
we're gonna have 3 motions ultimately.
Okay.
There's the first motion for discussion on whether or not the intervener proved that there would be, you know, the phrase of
Reasonably likely to have the effect of unreasonable polluting, impairing, or destroying of the public trust.
Okay, so then we need to decide that.
Okay.
Second, there'll be a motion on whether the proposal, like, we had the public hearing because there was a potential for a significant impact.
I got you.
So we'll have to decide whether the proposed impact is significant or not.
Well,
And then the third thing would be, if the commission goes that far, up or down on the application itself. And there is overlap, because I hear in what you're saying, you know, the unreasonable harm is somewhat mitigated in this case.
I guess the other thing I would just add to the first item we're talking about is, you know, the overall stormwater management system is by all standards even more robust than is required. And I kind of like the fact that there's a big detention basin that allows for sediment to settle out and then travel down, and the underground storage areas that have filtration in them. So it's a fairly beyond normal design type levels of you know, robustness, I guess. So you know, this plan has got a lot of things going for it as far as minimizing impact on, you know, downstream watercourses and pollution. That's all.
Thank you.
Barbara? Then on the potential motions, depending upon how we vote on a finding of significant impact, we may have to have a finding on prudent and feasible alternatives.
Yes. Thank you. Yep. Decision tree, okay. All right, okay, so thank you. So can.
Jeff, well, or Jack, well stated there on the 5 points. I do agree, you know, at face value to everything you had stated. I feel that the information presented, you know, there were, you know, points referenced here, and I did not hear expert testimony, you know, trying to put forward many of these items, and agree exactly as you stated it, Jack.
Thank you. Well, and thank you.
So, you know, I agree with all the points that Jack brought forth. You know, one of the things, most of us are citizens of this town. And I think all of us up here take the responsibility of protecting our wetlands, you know, very seriously. It's something that when applicants come before us, we depend on science, you know, soil scientists, engineers, to look at parcels that come before us and have reasonable solutions for problems that affect our wetlands. And although the interveners brought a lot of information, I mean, there was no question in my mind that they tried to research all the issues that affect this application, but none of it I found to be counter the science that was brought before us by the engineers, the soil scientists, the people that we depend on to help guide us in our deliberation on any application. You know, we sat here and we listened to the different facts that were brought before us, but honestly, none of them really addressed a lot of the information that was brought to us by scientists, by engineers. And you know, for that reason, I concur with Jack's assessment. You know, great job, Jack, in putting that together for our commission. So that's the way I looked at the intervener's presentation.
Thank you. All right, we've 3 more to hear from. Who's next? Dan, do you want us? Are you ready? Paul?
Sure. It appeared to me that the applicant has done a lot of work in taking care of any of the wetland issues. And no one has come forth and said that none of what they propose will work. So you have to assume that what they propose to do is going to work and protect the wetlands as they need to.
Thank you. Jim, please.
I think the main question in all of this was how much of the area is wetland? And I think that the verification that was done showed an up-to-date situation, which the amount of wetland was very limited. So I think that was settled in my mind.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, agreed from a factual standpoint with a third-party soil scientist. I didn't see anything other than from the intervener status that changed my opinion. I agree with what you came up with.
Okay, so people have spoken to the relative scope of the wetlands compared to the project. They've spoken to presence or absence of expert testimony. They've spoken to the relative value of the existing versus the mitigation, not in a lot of detail. I think that comes later. Okay. All right. Any further discussion on the motion as to whether or not the intervener petition made the case for reasonably likely unreasonable harm? Okay. Then we'll call for a vote. Maybe it should be a roll. Maybe we'll just go down the line and vote. I'll go this way and that way so that it can be recorded. So, all right. In favor, not in favor?
Nay.
Okay.
Nay.
Dan?
Nay.
Paul?
Nay.
Dick? Adam?
Nay.
And Jim?
Nay.
Okay, then we have unanimous finding that the petition failed to state that case. Okay. All right. Not significant impact. We haven't had an intervener in quite a while. We're checking the notes and I'm
Section 11.3 of our regulations, in the case of an application which received a public hearing pursuant to a finding by the agency that the proposed activity may have an impact on wetlands and watercourses, a permit shall not be issued unless the agency finds on the basis of the record that a prudent and feasible alternative does not exist.
So first we need to determine
So first we need a finding of significant impact on the wetlands and watercourses. So again, I'm going to put this motion in the affirmative. Move a finding of significant impact on wetlands and watercourses.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion then.
Well, I guess I can start off again. The watercourses, in this case, watercourses involved here, sometimes referred to as ditches, but more accurately referred to as watercourses. Their primary purpose was groundwater discharge. The proposed application, proposed activity with the ponding that they're doing there will still maintain that function. The secondary potential function was providing hydrology on off-site in the one watercourse before it then flows into a municipal storm sewer system. The use of the roof water, partial roof water, will be maintaining that source of water into that portion of the watercourse. Therefore, on this one, I too, again, am going to vote nay.
And I guess in the notes, wetland number 1 also had in the function and value assessment indicated sediment or toxogen or pathogen retention and nutrient removal, retention, or transformation. And existing stormwater structures as proposed are going to hold not just the first inch, but the first 3 inches, and they're going forward with fairly robust, you know, beyond the minimum requirements of stormwater renovation. I just wanted to comment on those two. That was not listed as, although it's partial function, it's not a primary function of wetland 2, but it was of wetland 1. Okay. All right, so anyone else comment? So we should probably should we go on the record, or?
I just have to agree
thoughts
as
or comments?
proposed.
Pardon?
I would have to agree as proposed. They seem to have checked all the boxes.
So, comment.
Yeah, and absolutely agree. The proposed application relative to what we're experiencing currently on the lot, I agree that the proposed large catch basin wetland mitigation on the west side of the property, introduction to clean water into existing wetlands that are being maintained on the property, all serve as improvements, even though there is an elimination occurring on the site.
All right, and then here's where there's some overlap with some of the comments you were making about mitigation, if you want to.
I think what Adam said is true. There's things that are being done to improve the overall health of the wetlands in the area. You know, it's something that we have to, through mitigation, always resolve issues when there are wetlands issues and weigh what the value is of what we're losing versus the value of what we're getting. And I think this application gives us a positive for, you know, the wetlands that are on the property are going to be healthier, and one of the wetlands, even if it'll be a larger wetlands than it is now, and will be, more apt to have wetland wildlife and plantings, and just be a better wetlands ecosystem.
Thank you. Does anyone?
One of the challenges that many applicants face when they come before a commission is to see if there's ways that they can improve the water quality of the plan that they develop. And, a lot of the commissioners have been on this commission for quite some time. I've only been on it for a couple of years, and I will tell you that, this plan probably has done an outstanding job, I think, to not only address the issues and the definitions of the property they're developing, but I think they have done a great job in trying to improve the wetlands, the quality of the water, and had some great solutions. And I think they didn't do just the minimum to get this project done.
Thanks. All right, then if there's any other comments?
I agree that the applicant has done what's necessary to take care of anything they create. So they're not adding to the water pollution. They're actually cleaning it to some extent.
So essentially offsetting any law.
Right.
All right, got that. All right, understood. All right. Everybody's quiet. All right, so if there's no more discussion then, or if you have a comment, yeah. I thought a hand went up, or was it, okay. There's a lot of reflections in the glass, and motions are funny sometimes. All right, then we'll call for a vote, and can we go down and just do it the yay or nay down the line again? I think that helped last time.
Yes. Nay.
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 Question. I didn't get the question.
Oh, this is the finding on whether or not there will be a significant impact. This application is going to cause a significant impact or not on the wetland. Okay, thanks. All right, then that was unanimous nay. All right, then. So now, we did not have the finding of a significant impact. So we don't need to weigh in, but we can discuss that in discussion of the motion if we want. All right, is there anyone who would like to make an overall motion on this application?
Okay. Move to approve application, what's the number on it again? 21-36P. Standard terms and conditions. Bonding recommendation, Jeff?
I'd recommend bond for establishment and maintenance of erosion and sediment controls during construction of $50,000. I would also recommend a bond for installation of the stormwater structures and the installation of the wetland mitigation area of $100,000. The bond to be kept for 3 growing seasons to ensure proper establishment of the wetland mitigation area.
Okay.
All right.
I have 2 other conditions that I would like to have added on to this. because the created wetland will have what is effectively a lawn area near it, surrounding it. I have conditioned that that area shall not be cut more than once a year, preferably in the fall, so that it can act properly as to protect the created wetlands. Second, this approval is based on a specific design, a specific size building, a specific arrangement of parking and impervious areas, and that if there are any changes when the actual design is done, that they must come before this commission again to verify that the changes do not alter the findings that were made on this application. Does anybody else see other specific approvals they'd like to have added?
I'd like to clarify the two, and where you're talking about the once-a-year mowing around the created wetland, that not be planted in turf grass, but that be planted in an appropriate either wetland or meadow mix.
Accepted.
Okay. And that your comment on no changes should include a reference to the representation that was made that there'd be no vehicle washing in particular, and that if vehicle washing was allowed, that definitely would have to come back and would require,
So an additional condition of there shall be no vehicle washing and or vehicle maintenance other than that necessary on an emergency basis for maintenance.
without it, and that if that's to be done, it comes back for a review of appropriate measures.
If that is a concern of the commission, I would also recommend that the commission make a recommendation to planning and zoning that if planning and zoning approves this application, that it also be a condition of approval unless such time that a facility specific to truck washing be actually proposed and constructed on the site.
Okay,
We can
we'll do that.
do that after the motion is closed, voted on.
Okay. All right.
Jack,
Have any others? Did anyone else have any other?
Jack, in talking to Jeff, you know, that westerly 20-foot strip that borders the new wetlands and the existing wetlands that you probably only mow once a year?
Yes, so that it will,
Pardon?
yes, that's so that it be mowed once a year so that it can function as a buffer zone.
Right, Jeff suggested a wildflower mix that would be mowed in the fall. And what I would maybe also add to that is, to the northerly section there's going to be a fair amount of grass that's kind of mostly in the 80-foot upland area that butts against where the trucks come in. That ought to be limited to, well, we ought to not have any chemical fertilizers or weed killers used in that area. Anything that's eco-friendly is fine, but I think anything that's got a pesticide in it should be, you know, just off limits for that section.
Okay.
All right.
I had one other, you know, I don't know if it got changed in the plans or not, but Carla Pasta had a request that the inspection, you know, on the detention basin be done more frequent than 5 years because of their concern. I don't think that's been changed on the plans, but they suggested 3 years, and what we should stipulate also is that the firm be experienced in the mechanical and the environmental aspects of the drainage system, so that it gets a full top to bottom analysis every 3 years. I imagine if everything's going well after a bunch of years, they may be able to cut that back, but I think for the first bunch of years, to make sure everything's well established, because that basin really is going to be an area which is going to be developed into kind of a wetland area with wetland plants, and it could generate some very reasonable wetlands environment for things to propagate. You know, I know interveners were worried about where the animals are going to get their water, and you know, where some of the turtles that they saw, where are they going to go? You know, they're obviously okay now because there's no water where we're changing it, but they're going to be in a habitat that's got a basin that's going to be wet year round. It's going to be for certain species, it's going to be a good thing.
So the inspection frequency and maintenance, that maintenance would include removal of invasive. I would.
Yes, yeah, that's pretty much standard these days with it. That should include, and I think the evaluation of the success of, again, the plantings would also include an evaluation of invasive species, you know, either taking hold or you know, promulgating.
So any other
Anybody second?
conditions?
Is this anyone's second to the
Yeah.
motion?
Yeah, I'm just making sure we don't have any other conditions to add, and then we need the second. So, no other conditions? Were you right there on the second? Did you want to make the second? Okay. All right. So now there's the motion with conditions and a second. So now we should have, now we have discussion on the merits of the application.
I guess I can start again. As has been mentioned in some of the other motions by other commissioners, the applicant here seems to have done a very good job of designing a system that will handle the necessary stormwater with the created wetlands. They are recreating some of the functions with the infiltrators, with the stormwater ponds. They are, and with the roof leader systems, they are recreating or enhancing the current functions. And I would say, in general, they did an excellent job at it.
Okay. Any other?
I think the design professionals did all they could to, you know, isolate this project from the residential it abuts. You know, the berms that they built, the plantings, the increased buffers between the residential and the building and the parking, the moving of all the loading docks to the west side, which kind of faces where Carla Pizza is, so it's pretty much away from all the residential lots that are there. I think the design that they've come up with is about the best they could do for a building of that size that's going to be that close to a residential area. And you know, you do the best you can to isolate things, and I think they've done that.
So the flip side of that is that the basin, there's the large basins, the berms and those areas are toward a residential area rather than toward more industrial area. And it's toward a residential area that spoke toward appreciating some of the wildlife values that aren't particularly wetlands, but that can come with that area, or that type of.
Yeah, the zoning regs call for, I think, 50 feet, and it's 150 feet, and what we came up with. It's given the residential area, you know, about the maximum distance away that they could do and still have a viable project.
All right, does someone else want to speak to the? I guess at this point, you know, I'd like to just readdress a comment Jack briefly made about the wetland delineation, and that we need to go by what is currently found to be on the site. And based on the information presented, and I'm very comfortable with the delineation and the effort and work that, you know, that went into making that's an accurate representation of what wetland, poorly drained soils we have on the site. And so I'm comfortable that way. We heard, is there any other comments? In here, okay, then I'll just, you know, would repeat or just ask people to remember, you know, the comments about the functions and values that got identified for the wetlands, and the fact that while they're not the natural wetlands, but that the structural and the best management practices and the stormwater practices are addressing the primary functions in terms of the groundwater, the nutrient and pathogen removals.
Right.
You know, and the other just general observation, I guess, you know, the value of these wetlands, the watercourse, you know, as it leaves the site, it enters pipes. So it's the removal and replacement of the functions, you know, doesn't seem to me like the same as if it was part of a downstream, very natural environment. Okay. Any other thought? Right. So, all right. If there's no other discussion, then I guess we'll call for a vote on the motion to approve. I guess you know what, we need to address, should we say anything about prudent feasible or no? Just for the record statement.
We did not have a finding of significant impact.
And so therefore the finding of prudent and feasible alternatives is not required.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Then all in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
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 We've got it. All right. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, no one is opposed. Is there anyone abstaining on this motion? And no one is abstaining. Then the permit is granted for application 21-36P. With the conditions, yeah, with the conditions as, that was in the motion. Conditions in the motion. Okay. All right, and we've got those. Then we're on to the next item of business. Oh, do we want to take a minute? I guess we'll take a 2-minute or a 1-minute break.
We still in the habit of keeping, like, application 2149W, are we still keeping those open to
No, we can do that.
next meeting?
We closed the public
We
hearing.
closed the public hearing? Okay.
Because no one's.
We did close it, yes.
Yeah, because no one spoke. If there had been, and I take it. Oh, we did, one person spoke with a question.
Yeah, you could act on 2149 if you wanted to this evening.
So, move to approve application 21-49W, Town of South Windsor. Standard terms
Right.
and conditions.
The meeting has started again. Would you mind repeating, please, Jack?
Bonding not necessary by this commission.
But the
Correct.
township bond.
Yeah, we'll be looking for bonds from the contractors as the town.
Yep. I did not see, to me, any need for any additional conditions.
All right, is
Second.
there a second to that? Okay, Dick has seconded it. All right, any discussion?
Yeah, like I'd say, it seems long overdue over there. Beelzebub Road is in tough shape. And it looks like a good plan. You know, you're only encroaching in the wetlands area where you absolutely have to harden it. And you're restoring the upland area. You know, it's excellent plan.
Yeah.
I'll agree with both those points. Long overdue. I'm tired of having to play the slalom course to try and get through the road. And
What?
that there will be, that impact to wetlands has been held to an absolute minimum.
And the hydrodynamic separators are going to be a great addition
Agreed.
to that. That kind of stormwater retrofit is really, really good for wetland and watercourse health. Okay, any other comments? So hearing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor of the motion
Aye.
as presented?
Aye.
Is anybody opposed to that motion? Okay, no one has voiced no. Any abstentions? No abstentions, so that motion carries. That application is unanimously granted. All right.
For the better, Jeff.
Is anyone behind the podium? Because I see no old business.
I think we're down to our normal
We're-
amount of public now.
Yeah. We're on the other business, the show cause hearing for 40 C paved road. Cease and desist and restore order. Are these, is this what you sent me, Jeff? We got this in the mail, right? Wait, these are new pictures.
So the cease and desist and restore was sent out last week. I believe it was postmarked on Thursday on it. So it was sent out 10 days prior to the show cause hearing for the regulations. You received, I think in your package, the aerial photographs that showed the site as of early March and then late March. I had discussions with Mr. Lombardo during March, where verbally he was told to desist and restore the area. At the time, he agreed to do that, and unfortunately, his efforts to restore the area actually made it worse. He ended up getting a couple pieces of machinery caught in the mud there, so he did make it quite a bit worse. We ended up, again, discussing this at the end of March, and at that time, I told him I would give him a list of tasks that needed to be done to restore this. That was sent to him via email. At the time, I was down in the EOC, and we were still in in COVID mode, so I did not receive any response from him on that. That precipitated the violation letter that was sent in June, and again, there was no response to it. We then obviously got the tremendous amount of rain from those storms, so it understandably made it really difficult to work on the site. The storm ceased in mid-August, and at the end of August, grading resumed on the site. Again, there was no effort to contact the town on this, and what you see in front of you, what I just passed out, is what the site looks like today. So instead of excavating the area that was initially disturbed, which was on the eastern wetland side, actually he completely filled it and graded it smooth. So that's currently what is the situation that we have today.
So it's more filled than it was?
It's more filled.
About how many feet back from the original wetland line is filled?
I'd say probably 20 to 25, and pretty much the entire length of the lot. So an area probably about 100 to 120 feet by 25 was disturbed. And actually, the majority of the area that was disturbed isn't even on his property, it's on the church property. The church that is right on the corner of Long Hill and Burnham Street.
And we never had a bond yet on this because he didn't start construction?
No, we don't take the bond until they start work. So we never had a pre-construction meeting on this. He was told actually 2 years ago when he contacted the planning department by Michelle, the director of planning, that was what was required in order to initiate work on the site. We have a pre-construction meeting where all of the staff gets together, discusses with the applicant and generally the contractor, so there's an understanding on what's expected through the course of construction on there. And unfortunately, again, that was never done.
So with an order, we give him an opportunity, there's a hearing to say something. I guess our options here are to rescind the order, to amend the order, or to sustain the order. So we certainly, seems to me that we should have a motion to leave this order in effect, and then at some point, we'd need to escalate and either move to court action or...
Right. I would add that currently he is attempting to sell the property. So I have had actually inquiries from folks that are desiring to purchase the property.
Do they understand 25 feet of it really isn't available to be built on?
Well, not only that, but obviously there's an outstanding violation on the property. Actually went so far, there was one gentleman who was interested. I did explain the fact that there's an ongoing violation here that would have to be corrected before any building permit or anything would be approved by the town. So he asked if he were to purchase the property, could he affect the repairs on the property? And I said, yeah, well, you know, our goal is to have it restored on it. So yes, that would be something that could happen, but again, we're not going to allow it. We're not going to sign off on any building permits until it's restored to the town's satisfaction. So apparently he did go back to Mr. Lombardo, because I received a voicemail from Mr. Lombardo by the end of that day to give him a call so we can rectify the situation. I did call him back. He did not answer. I left a voicemail on him. This was on Monday, and I haven't heard anything back from him since.
Move to uphold the cease and desist and restore order of October 26, 2021.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, given that explanation, any more discussion?
I guess I would like to add the order that I did issue to him doesn't have any dates on it. Would the commission want to amend the order to put any kind of a performance date on it, after which time we would revisit this to see if legal action is, either legal action or revocation of the wetland permit is another option. Obviously, that could occur, but
And if there's a violation, entering on the land record.
yes, we could put a caveat on the land records as well.
What would be a reasonable length of time?
I've given him since March to fix this problem. I think at least, I would say 30 days to at least contact the town with a restoration plan or intent.
And the placement of a bond. To do the work, not just a word when he comes in.
Yeah.
Our first meeting in, want to say 30 days, or the first meeting in December? Would you consider that
Yeah.
Sure.
friendly amendment? And a friendly,
So we give him 30 days. He doesn't comply in 30 days. Let's just say he doesn't. What happened? Can he be fined?
Actually, we can. We do have the ability to levy a fine. We've never used it, and I can research that. But yes, it starts at $100 a day, and then maxes out at $250 a day. If it continues to be ignored, I think that's the way the ordinance is set. And I can provide a copy for you folks for the, I won't be here at the meeting on the 17th, but on the meeting in December, I can provide a copy of that ordinance for you, so you can,
so maybe he,
beforehand, so you could consider it.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
So
he's had this since March. He hasn't responded. Obviously, we don't have his attention. And the other thing, too, is when you found out that it was going to be sold and money was involved, all of a sudden he wants to talk to you. So I'm just thinking that if we put a little, you know, skin in the game on his part, maybe he'll be a little bit more responsive.
so the 30 days, does it work out neatly for the December meeting? I don't know what the date of our
Getting there. December 1st.
Oh, so it's not quite 30,
that would be
it's
less than
28
30
days or
days.
so, whatever. Good enough? That, would you want to amend your motion and your second to include that he needs to initiate action by then, or that, or we will initiate some form of a legal action?
Okay.
Whether it's
Okay,
a
amend motion to say, work shall be done no later than the end of November 2021.
And at our December 1st meeting, based on that, we'll consider next steps involving fines or legal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somehow I think the fine is gonna get his attention more than the threat for legal. I mean, especially if he wants to sell the property.
I think you're right. It's a carrot.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, the legal action is always available as the next step, right?
We're also reaching a point, where it's a tough time of year because it's late for planting.
Yeah, yeah.
Although he's obviously got bare soil there right now.
Right.
So I guess regrading, pulling it back, and I think he should use soil tackifier or some kind of, you've got mulch on there or stabilization. You had seeding at, where's your, I just covered up your list.
Called for 2 different types of seeding, depending upon where it was being used.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, cause he'll need to mulch and cover the ground for the winter, one way or another.
Yep.
All right. So other than that, any more discussions? All right, then call for a vote on the motion as updated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, any abstaining? No abstaining. Done.
Okay.
Are there any other applications received?
Done.
We may not have a meeting next.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
Everybody seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you all very much for hanging in there on a very tough application to deal with. Really.